Hello, test, test, test. How's the volume? You guys hear me okay? Should be good. Hello, test, test, test. Volume's good? Sweet. Okay. So let's go ahead and talk about the, of course, the Bitcoin market, but we'll start from the zoomed out perspective, as we like to do, and just get a feel for what the heck is going on here. There's my fib set. My fib set keeps getting deleted. I don't know why. Okay. We'll go ahead and put that on here. Okay. Because we've got this recurring trend line that got revisited a couple of days ago. And it's interesting that it keeps showing up. But first, let me throw this fib set on here. So we got a fib set from here to right here-ish. And we're going to call you blue. All right. So zooming out to the one-day chart. Where'd my Wacom tablet go? Okay, here we go. Zooming out to the one-day chart, we see this cool. So we see the parabolic curve, right? We see the linear trend, this purple guy, and then we see the 50 EMA and the 200 EMA. Uh, 200 EMA. Okay, and what I want you to watch is this this linear trend line, because I'm going to zoom in a little bit closer. So pay attention to this purple guy. We actually made a nice bounce off of it on the lowest low that we made a few days ago, the lowest low out of this trend. We bounced right off of it, actually. This linear trend line is something I drew like, I don't know, 3 months ago, maybe, and it's been in all my articles for Bitcoin Magazine ever since. And it's just interesting that it keeps playing a role in this market. You know, you can see here when we broke the linear trend is when the market really took a hard turn, and when we managed to find support on top of the linear trend is when we bounced. And you can see we had a really clean bounce off of the linear trend line here, right? And so keeping with the one-day chart, let's go ahead and look at the Fibonacci sets and the EMAs, okay? Because right now we're finding support on the daily EMA, the daily 50 EMA, which is this blue bro right here, this guy. We can see a candle sitting right on top of it, which is good. But something to note is that so look at this is our previous distribution trading range, this whole red box over here. We see here that we're finding resistance on this thing again. Last time we broke above it, we made this really big ass gravestone doji, hammer doji, reversal doji, right? And we saw some turbulent market and it broke down. If you recall, I think it was like maybe 3 streams ago, I think we were down here. And I was saying if we manage to make it up here, this is going to be very turbulent because this was where the markdown began from the distribution campaign. So let's go ahead and zoom out a little bit. So here's the previous distribution trading range right here. And we see that we broke down and now we're finding resistance on it at the current moment. So what does this mean? Well, let's look a little closer at this price action here. Okay, is the 6 hour going to be okay? Let's unmerge down. Okay, but let's get rid of you for let's get rid of volume for the moment. Okay, this looks good. All right. So current price action, right? So we see the previous distribution trading range labeled in red, obviously, right? We saw several tests before it ultimately broke down from this massive bear pennant, and you know, it bottomed out around 6K. I need to adjust this fib set. I think I shifted that thing, but it's way off. You can see I moved it here. It's not quite lining up with the wicks anymore. But anyway, we see here it bottomed out around 6K, in the low 6,000s. And, you know, it bounced and it started rising on this dotted channel right here, where ultimately when we broke out of this channel, we saw this like this really big swings in prices. You know, it went down a lot, it went up a lot, it went down a lot, it went up a lot, and just kind of just like chopped everyone to pieces, you know. And so a lot of people are sidelined and they're kind of confused what's going on, because on one hand, there are a lot of things that make this look bearish, but on the other hand, why aren't we breaking down? And I've got a couple ideas for this. So keep this in the context of the 6-hour candles, and we'll zoom in because it's important to keep time frame into consideration when we're talking about this. Especially when we're talking about distribution and accumulation. You can, within one giant distribution, like something on the 6-hour or 12-hour perhaps, you can have multiple distributions and accumulations within this giant macro distribution, right? So just for those who don't know, the typical market cycle goes like this, right? So we see accumulation at the bottom, we see distribution at the top, and like this. So this is the mark up, distribution, here's the mark down, accumulation, and so on and so forth, right? So this was the top of the giant bull market. So this is distribution right here. We see a bit of markdown, and then it bounced. For those that are familiar with Wyckoff analysis, this right here is textbook last point of supply for a macro distribution trading range. So within the context of this giant markdown, this is still last point of supply. Okay, and once we start to look at the volume, it actually makes a bit of sense too, because last point of supply typically is a failed rally to newer highs, right? Actually, let's clear off this chart real quick. So and let's get rid of no, we'll leave the 200 EMA on there. So get rid of the 50. Yeah, 200 EMA. So 200 EMA is, for those who aren't familiar with exponential moving averages, the 200 EMA is a really great tool just to put yourself in check on a macro scale. You know, if it's bullish, you know, the market's trending above the 200 EMA. If it's bearish, it's typically trending below it. And so right here, this is an important battleground, because if we manage to find support and rally, well, then we're back in bull mode, right? But if we fail to find support here and pull back down, well, that's going to be bearish. So within the context of this distribution, right, as I said, distribution's at the top of the market cycle, and there's a mark down, which leads to accumulation, and then it swings back up. So if you've got a distribution that is this large, I would expect to see an accumulation that is of that magnitude, right? So if it's something that's on the 6-hour, I would expect to see, for the next rally, I would expect to see, notice how I'm saying expecting. I would expect to see an accumulation trading range that is of that magnitude. You know, maybe that's something like 2 months, 3 months, something on the larger time scales that would give us confidence that we've got a nice foundation and we're ready to mark up and go on the next, you know, exponential move or whatever we're going to do. But currently, this is fitting within the parameters of a last point of supply. So I'll go ahead and relabel this. So this would be the buying climax here. This would be the automatic reaction, and I'm going to pull up some historical examples to show you exactly what I'm talking about. Buying climax would be a secondary test, up thrust. This would be a sign of weakness. This would be a secondary test. This would be last point of supply, and then now we start to do the markdown, right? So we see last point of supply, major sign of weakness here, and now we're back at last point of supply. So what does last point of supply mean, right? Last point of supply, if you're thinking about like a supply and demand, right? So within market dynamics, there's a push and pull of supply and demand, right? So if there's higher demand than supply, so if this is demand and demand's high, well, then the price goes up. If the demand is lower than the supply, and supply dominates the market, well, the price goes down because there's more supply than there are buyers, right? So if you have a last point of supply, that means that we're coming up to a top, and now supply is dominating the market, and we see the pushes down, right? So you can call this whole, I mean, you really call this whole thing is last point of supply, but we see a similar sort of thing right here. So what would invalidate this in my eyes? If we push to a new high, that would begin the invalidation in my head that we've broken out of the distribution trading range and that we're ready for higher highs. However, if we fail to make a new high here, that is extremely bearish. And what do I mean by, if we fail to make a new high? So if we rally and don't manage to make a new high before we pull down, that is, I don't know, 70 to 80% confirmation or 70 to 80% confidence that it is going to be a resumption of the downtrend. But if we break above, we find support here, that is really bullish news. So right now, this is where I have my eyes set in terms of going bull mode. If we manage to find support here, what is this, in the 12,000s, then I'm leaning bull mode and I'm starting to accumulate again. But right now, I'm not feeling so hot about this. And I know I see a lot of arguments that we're making an inverted head and shoulders here, where this is like the shoulder, this is the head, this is the shoulder. But that could also just be a coincidence. Patterns can just be patterns and not actually have meaning behind them. And even people like Peter Brandt, they've commented on this, that it just kind of looks off. Like, for one, the volume profile doesn't really match. Like, typically within inverted head and shoulders, we want to see volume consolidation. And then toward the breakout, we see growth in volume. So this gives us confidence in a breakout. But we don't see that, right? Like, the volume profile is off for an inverted head and shoulders. And that's not to say it can't be an inverted head and shoulders, but when we're trading, we're trying to look for like highest confidence setup. So the higher the confidence, the more comfortable I feel with the trade. So I'm just listing my issues that I take with these patterns. That's not to say if we break out of this trend line and find support on it, I'm buying, right? Like, I'm buying. You don't just sit there and be like, oh, I'm going to call bullshit on an inverted head and shoulders that's breaking out. Like, that's a fool's errand. That's just like being stubborn at that point. That's just ridiculous. But I have my eyes set on this neckline, which is, basically what I'm saying before. If we manage to find support here, that would most likely invalidate this last point of supply thesis. So let's find some supporting arguments for this, because there are a ton of them. I posted a bunch of charts yesterday if you follow me on Twitter. If we look at the Ichimoku references, the Ichimoku cloud, which is a great indicator for macro trend analysis. That'll happen. Okay, on the daily, what do we see? Well, and I'm just using standard settings here. I'm not using the doubled settings that a lot of people like to use, like Josh Olszewicz likes to use the doubled settings, but to each their own. You gotta find what works for you, and I think that these work adequately. So on the Ichimoku cloud, we do see a bullish cross. But this is considered a weak bullish cross. There are three kind of bullish crosses here. A strong one would be if it crosses above the cloud. A neutral one would be if it crosses inside the cloud, and then ultimately a weak one would be if it crosses below the cloud. So right now we've got a weak bullish cross. So there's one in the bull column. Okay, so bull. Let's make a bull and bear column. So bull would be TK weak cross. Okay, bear. So right now we've got a thick red Kumo, which is this guy. We're nowhere close to even seeing a bullish twist, which would be this, but just in reverse, right? So as the cloud consolidates, we see a twist, and then it becomes bull again. So we're nowhere close to seeing that. Okay, so thick Kumo. we see that the Chiku span, which is this lagging span right here, this yellow guy, he's trending below the cloud and nowhere close to breaking out above the cloud. So Chiku, I think it's Chiku, is that how you spell it? Below cloud. Okay. Currently, it looks like we're finding support. So support, this is one for the bulls, support on Tenkan. But right now, this is where it's going to get interesting. The next daily candle is going to start intersecting with this, and typically this provides resistance. Just like on the top, the Kumo tends to find support. It tends to be support, but right now, you know, until it penetrates the cloud, this is going to be resistance. So this is something to keep an eye on. So we have overhead. Oh. So I just said no. So I'm going to interrupt myself real quick because I set a price alarm for this bull pennant on the 15-minute span. So let's go ahead and check it out. Because we may be breaking out at the moment. Let's go 15-minute. Yep. Okay. So I've got this bull pennant right here, and it's breaking out strongly. Okay. So this is going to get interesting. Look at it go. This is going to get interesting because I've an idea of what's going to happen here, because we've seen some fractal movement with this current pattern and the previous distribution pattern. And what I believe is going to happen is we're going to make, I mean, I may be proven wrong live, but I think what's going to happen is we're going to make a new high, and ultimately we're going to see a pullback because it's diverging on multiple time frames. And I think this is just going to serve to be a short squeeze to a high. It consolidates, and ultimately we're going to pull back. But it could be proven wrong. Okay. But right now, this is looking very strong. It popped right out. I was hoping to catch this breakout, but I'm doing a stream for you guys, so I guess I won't be trading this breakout. That sucks. And it's moving strong too, on really good volume. It broke right out perfectly. No real pullback on it yet either. So this thing actually has a $500 price target. Based on the poll, you could argue like a $600 or $700 price target, but the conservative one is 500. So if we project this upward, where is this going to go? 500. It would be 11.2. So this thing has a projected move of like 11.2. And so right now it just made a new high. Okay, so made a new high and it's coming in strong. All right. So while this is doing its thing and it's moving up, I want to point out a couple of fractal things that we've seen with the previous move. Man, that is a lot of volume. People are getting short squeezed now. We should see a pretty violent move upward as the shorters get squeezed, because what happens is, you know, shorters place their stops here, you know, like up in here, and as we penetrate, we puncture the price. They get stopped out and they get liquidated, which causes them to market buy. So that's why we see this violent move upwards, because we have a lot of bears. And so as we push these new highs, they get liquidated and it pushes the price up. But I think what's actually going to happen this time is we don't consolidate and move up. We actually consolidate and pull down, or we see an immediate pullback. And I'm basing that just purely off of this fractal that we've seen over here on the 2-hour. So if we look at the previous distribution trading range, right here, we see almost the exact same pattern. So we saw a breakout right here. We saw a breakout right here. And then this is where it double topped and pulled back. So I think we're going to see something like this occur, where it's going to fail to make a new high and it's going to pull back. That's my hypothesis. But I could be wrong. I'm more than willing to admit I'm wrong and just go long on it. But Bollinger Band wise, the price is very consolidated. We see a beautiful squeeze on the B bands, which means it's ready to pop upward. I think even on the higher time scales, on the higher time scales, like the 2-hour, we see B band consolidation. And on the 4-hour, not so much on the 4 hour. But right now, let's take a look at the price to see how the sells are coming in, see how off I am. So there's with any breakout, there's always going to be people that try to call the top. So this looks normal. You know, like it breaks out, people try to take profit, people try to short. I wouldn't expect this to be the top. I would expect it to push a little higher. What's the top? What is the previous high? Let's make a line. So let's go 30-minute view. Previous high is still well out of reach. So let's draw a line here. Something like that. Let's make you black and thick. And let's actually fix this too. Something like that. And where's the bottom? Something like that. Let's go ahead and lock you down. So someone said this third push in the past couple of days has consistent decrease in volume on the 15-minute chart. It's losing steam. I fully agree. It's diverging on the volume. It's diverging. Like if we look at something like the MACD, for example, it's diverging bearishly on the 30-minute. We see with each high, there's a lower high on the MACD. So there's a really good case that we're going to see a pullback here. You know, it's not guaranteed, but there's a really good case there. And oh, let me extend this too. This is the top of our trading. This is the top of our trading range. You know, like that. So we might see a test of this upper region. I don't think it's going to make it to the blue. Could be wrong, but I just don't think it's going to make it there. There are a lot of bearish signals here. Volume is getting lower and lower. MACD is getting lower and lower with each push. This is, yeah, I don't have very high expectations for it, for a sustained move upward. And like I said before, it fits the fractal thesis I was talking about, where we see three. I'll show you here. So we see 1, 2, and now we're on our third push. Okay, so keep that in mind. 1, 2, 3, 4 pushes. If we look at our previous distribution range before we broke down and we made our ultimate top, we saw 1, 2, 3 pushes before it pulled back. And I think we're here. Something like that. I think that's really where we are. So a really helpful tool that a lot of people in my trading group use. It's called volume flow. So if you look up top, it's a way it breaks down the volume from buys and sells, and it lets you know how many people are trying to sell a top versus continue the bullish momentum. So a typical volume indicator just tells you total volume. This actually breaks down the sells from the buys, and it just kind of distributes it on the display above. This is also the linear, yeah. So if you look at the linear channel, like the macro, let's go to the macro view, and we put this on linear, and we draw a straight line from here to here. We're breaking this trend line right now. So this is like a make or break point at the moment. Pretty convenient that it's, what the fuck? Oh, pretty convenient that it's like happening right in the middle of the stream, but such is life. So as with any breakout, it's stalling because people are like, do we buy or are we selling? Like, what's going on here? So, you know, typical breakout like kind of hangs out and people are like, you know, trying to feel each other out. Like, are we going to sell? Are we going to buy? Like, what's going on here? But like I said, I think ultimately this is going to top out with a less than stellar move upward. But I could be wrong. I'm open to being wrong here. Two legs up over easy. Okay. So we see a bit of selling at the moment, but it's also way outside the Bollinger Bands, and that is an overbought situation. So if you think about Bollinger Bands as like an envelope of volatility, anytime the price is outside the Bollinger Bands, it has a tendency to want to pull inside the Bollinger Bands because that's within the local volatility profile. So right now it's like just a little uncomfortable outside the Bollinger Bands and it's wanting to pull back in. Man, that's a bummer that I missed that. That was a nice move. I was totally waiting for that move to pop out too. I was hoping it wouldn't happen during the stream, but... So current 15-minute candle is being overwhelmed with sells. You can see it on the volume flow. I don't think it's ready to pull back just yet. So anyway, while we're waiting to see what this thing's doing, let's look at some more macro view stuff because I think it's really important for the total view of the market. If we look at the 3-day, this is where it starts to get interesting. So when we look at the 3-day move, we can see the Ichimoku cloud is starting to look pretty bearish because we see a bearish twist. I'm sorry, a bearish cross on the Tenkan and the Kijun, and we also see a bearish twist on the Kumo. And right now the price is finding support on the bottom of the cloud, which is good for the bulls. It's finding support on the 50 EMA, which is good for the bulls. But if this manages to push through, there's not a whole lot holding this up on the 3-day. And if we look at the weekly, we see the same sort of story because right now we're finding resistance on the Kijun. So but we do see a bullish engulfing candle, so that's good on the weekly. Okay, so there's a bearish argument, a bullish argument right there. When does that close? That still has several days on it though, doesn't it? Yeah, this just opened. This just opened. Okay. Let's go ahead and check back in on our little pennant breakout here. Okay, so we're seeing good volume on it. No pullback. So a bit of a fight here on this little reversal doji. Where was the squeeze? Yeah, so we see that we're still really outside the Bollinger Bands here. Probably see a pullback to retest the high. Even if we do continue upward, I still expect to see a pullback to see the most recent high. But this is going to be a sustained move. We had a really nice squeeze on the 60-minute B bands. And whenever you see a breakout from a squeeze, that typically indicates a sustained move because it represents nice volatility, nice consolidation in the market. So where the real test is going to come in is where it comes is when it if it makes it this high, where it comes up to the preliminary supply and where it comes up to the secondary test. So let's draw this guy here too. Let's make you blue. Yeah, like that. I could probably clean up my chart a little bit too. I've been trading the lower time scale since it's been so choppy. It's fun to chop trade sometimes. But you can see here that oh, I was going to show you guys an example of the macro distribution, wasn't I? So if we look at the while we're waiting for that thing to decide what it's going to do, if you look at the 4-hour view, I'm going to pull up an historic example that matches ours pretty well. Let me try to find it real quick. Where'd that thing go? Okay, here we go. Let me try, okay, let's get you over here. Let's do 6 hour, I guess. Clean up these candles a little bit. Let's get the Bollinger Bands off too. So if we're looking here, I'll show you guys. It's a Netflix example. Can I get this on here? Like that. Okay. So if we look at this example right here. Oh, can I not pull up my, there we go. So here's an example of Netflix a few years ago, where we see, you know, the preliminary supply again, the buying climax, the up thrust, and then the last point of supply, and so on and so forth. So the 6,000, in our case, the 6,000s would be here, and we see that a typical retest of the trading range, which is in this case is this guy, is pretty common. This happened with Netflix. It came back into the trading range and ultimately rejected it. And right now, that's a possibility for us as well. That we're here and it, you know, ultimately rejects it. But like I said, if we come upward and we find support here, that's gonna be really bullish. That throws this out the window, and it shows that we're moving on to something something other than a continued markdown. It shows that we had enough buying volume here to invalidate the retest of the trading range, and that we're just gonna have to, you know, reassess the market. But at the moment, this is where I stand with it. I think we're just doing a retest of the major distribution trading range in what is an overall markdown of Bitcoin. And the larger time frames, the most reliable indicators, you know, things like Ichimoku, things like Bollinger Bands, they all support this argument, you know. Let's go ahead and look again on the smaller time frames. Let's take a look. Okay, so we're not seeing as much of a follow through as we did before. So like these past two breakouts, we see very large continuous 15-minute candles on very high volume. So you know, here's an example. Here's an example. Here's an example. And right now we're kind of just hanging out on mediocre volume and decent sell volume. So keep an eye here because we may be reaching our local top. Overall volume's that wasn't going down. Overall volume's going down, and yeah. So we see volume still going up. So there must be a lot of sell walls there, selling into people with limit sells. Or I'm sorry, buying into limit sells. Because the price is not moving at all. Like we see almost the same exact volume, but a third of the spread, meaning that supply and demand are in battle with each other, and right now they're headbutting each other and not really getting anywhere. So this lack of candle spread is concerning for the bullish case. That's not to say that it's just gonna like shit and like reverse. That's not what that means. It means like we could just consolidate again. But right now, this almost equal volume and not equaling the same spread indicates that sellers are starting to pick up, limit orders are starting to get filled for sells, and we could see a pullback here shortly. What's your indicator below volume? Oh, this is just Bollinger Bands Bollinger Band width and percent B. It's just they're just overlapped on top of each other. We see this is BBW and this is percent B right here. Oh, no, I'm sorry, I said that backwards. This is BBW and this is percent B. There's just two Bollinger Band indicators because I trade a lot with Bollinger Bands, so. Oh man, a lot of people just got liquidated on whale calls. I love watching whale calls sometimes. Huge buys on GDAX. There are always huge buys on GDAX. GDAX is like the FOMO machine. They're almost always more bullish than any other market. I actually have them right here. I have their price, but their price isn't moving. So one thing that I found useful when comparing all markets or several markets at the same time, I overlay the line plot of different markets on my candlesticks. So like, for example, here, I'll show you a couple. You guys might find this useful too. If we zoom in close, I've actually got 4 markets here. So here's the candles are Bitfinex. This pink line is Korea. This red line is Coinbase, and the blue line here is Bitflyer, so Japanese yen. And it's just a way to keep your pulse on the market when we see strong moves here. We're seeing who's leading the market, who's leading the sells, and it's just a way to get a quick check. So if you guys are interested in doing that, I highly recommend it. It's really useful to get some quick insight without having to be like, oh, I'm going to check all these markets at the same time. It's just it's a nice way to keep your pulse on who's leading what direction. What's the volume indicator you have on top? So it's called volume flow V6, and what it shows you if you came in late is it shows you, like, we can take a look at it. So normal volume is here, right? So if you take the sum of the green and the red, it will equal this. Well, this tells you how much of it is selling and how much of it is selling and how much of it is buying. It just tells you like where the bullish pressure and the bearish pressure lie, and what's going on. So like, for example, right now, we see a lot of buys right now and not a lot of movement, which indicates, you can just, through process of elimination, well, if the buys are very high, the sells are very low, the candle's barely moving, what does that mean? It means a lot of limit sells are being filled. And that means a lot of people are confident that this is going to be nearing its top because they're placing all their limit sells up top. It's just another way to get a feel for how the market is moving. From a macro perspective, linear chart, not log. If you draw the trend line from the all-time high touching the tops, we are now breaking the trend. Does this hold any weight for you? Yeah. So that's what I was talking about. Because it's a macro trend, right now it doesn't hold any weight for me. It's, of course, going to be a spot where everyone's going to try to sell if they're bearish, and buy if they're trying to buy a breakout. But until we close a couple candles above it, that doesn't mean anything to me because we break trends and come back into them all the time. If we look at the macro view, for example, on the 6-hour candle, so we had a really nice channel moving downward here, and we broke above it here and came back in. So just because it's breaking out doesn't mean it's going to be a sustained breakout. So that's going to be, if you're an institutional investor and you're looking to trap bullish investors, that's where you do it. You do it on a fake breakout of a trend line. So I'm personally going to wait for confirmation. After a few candles, that it's finding support, and once it finds support there, then that's going to hold weight for me. But at the moment, it doesn't hold much weight for me because until you get a candle close, it doesn't really mean a whole lot. It's a point of interest to be like, oh wow, okay, bullish investors are finding dominance at the moment, but it doesn't mean anything macro-wise just yet. If it's a macro trend, it needs macro confirmation. Just always remember that. And we can see here, we're starting to see some red candles on the 15-minute. Oh, this one just opened, so disregard that. This candle just opened. You still feeling long-term bearish? At the moment, I am. I think we're at a last point of supply for the macro distribution trading range. But like I said, if we make a new high and we find support there, then I'm going to be buying. Like, I'm going to be buying that. I'm not just going to sit there and with my head in the mud and be like, oh, this is bearish, guys. Don't buy it. You know, if it breaks out, it breaks out. There's nothing wrong with that. But I just see a really strong case for why this is not bullish, despite how it looks. This has happened before. Like, if you've been tracking Bitcoin for more than like 7 months, this sort of price activity where we see sudden buys, consolidation, sudden buys, consolidation, sudden buys usually leads to a strong pullback and a continuation of a downtrend or the beginning of a downtrend. Big sells happening. Yeah, see, this is what I was expecting to happen, was that it would, you know, start to reverse here. I didn't expect this to have much follow through. I think we might get one more touch. I think ultimately we make one more high, and if we do, I'm gonna be looking to take a short on the next high. I think we come down, we bounce, make another little high, and then if we pull back, that's where we're going to pull back. I don't think we just pull back here. I think there's going to be a little bit of consolidation, a little bit of fake out consolidation where people are like, oh, this is going to continue upward. That's just how the composite operators do it, you know? Fake breakouts have a high probability of an opposite trend breakout. Yeah, so if you're ever watching a bull pennant, just a classic bull pennant, right? Like something like this, and you see a breakout and it hesitates and it pulls back, that's usually an indication of a fake out and actually a reversal of the market. Happens all the time. Whenever you see a breakout have a weak follow through right off the bat, that's usually a bad sign. And it's usually a sign to get out of the trade. I'm not saying that's what's going on here, but it's starting to look pretty weak. And it's been diverging the whole way up, decreasing volume. A lot of momentum indicators are showing that it's diverging. This doesn't look very good. And if you guys are familiar with what a diamond top is, this is a new pattern to me. Diamond tops are typical reversal patterns, and they're known for having breakouts that fake out to the top and come down. So it's very possible that that's what's happening here. It fits the price action and the volume profile of a diamond top. So I'm looking for, you know, I'm looking for a fake out here. Seems like third time is either new high or dump on the macro. Yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean, and you can see it here. It's like it's hesitating. Doesn't really know what it wants to do with its life. It's still living in its mother's basement. You know. Most of the rises have trended like this in the last month or two. We're not seeing lots of ascending volume on the breakouts like we did in the bull. Yeah. Ma, meatloaf. Oh, while we're waiting for Bitcoin to figure out what it wants to do with its life, let's go ahead and look at some of the major market pairs and talk about them, because there's also some interesting stuff going on. So Ether Bitcoin, I'm not going to talk about it on the small time scale because I find that to be less interesting. I'm only day trading Bitcoin because of the amount of leverage you can get with it. But on Ether Bitcoin, for example, there are some really There's some bearish stuff going on. The fact that this hesitated, it broke up, and it didn't have a continuation gives me little hope for a parabolic rise like this. It's looking very bearish. It found resistance on the macro. This is the daily. The macro 50. We see a bearish twist here. We see a weak bearish cross on the Tenkan and the Kijun. And it's heading toward the bottom of this cloud. And if this breaks out of the bottom of the cloud, the next line of support is going to be 0.071. That's going to be the next line of support. And once it breaks down below that, there's not a whole lot below it for a while. If we look at the 3-day, 3-day looks okay. So we might actually find some support on the 3-day cloud. But what's really interesting is, check this out. So if we look at the Bollinger Bands on the 3-day, they're actually squeezing. They're squeezing on the 3-day. And the last time we had a squeeze on the 3-day, we had a very strong breakdown on the Ether Bitcoin trend. And the fact that there's a lot of bearish signs on the daily Ichimoku setup, I think it's going to be a resumption of the downtrend. I think it's going to be a strong breakdown, maybe ride on the 50 for a while and then ultimately break down, but I think it's going down. I really do. I was really bullish on Ether Bitcoin until it started to stall. When it stalled, when it went parabolic and it stalled and it retraced and it dropped below its previous low and then it dropped below the 50 EMA, I started changing my tune on it, and I don't feel very bullish on it at the moment. And same deal with the USD pair. You know, we see the price trending below the daily Kumo. We see a thick red bearish Kumo. We see the Chiku flirting with the side of this, with the side of the cloud. And if we look at it from a Wyckoff perspective, this, just like Bitcoin, looks like a distribution trading range. Ether looks way less bullish than Bitcoin, you know, and that's also why the Ether Bitcoin ratio is pulling down. But at the moment, it just looks very weak, and I'm expecting a pretty substantial retracement from Ether at the moment. Especially if Bitcoin pulls back, then Ether's definitely pulling back. I thought B-band squeezes were good for rises. No, B-band squeezes are just consolidation. B-band squeezes can break down or break up. Like, for example, I'll show you an example with Bitcoin here. So if we look at the macro, oh, we're starting to see a little bit of pullback again. It's retesting the high. Don't break down just yet. Let me get in my short position, bruh. So if we look at the daily, and we turn on the B-bands, let's go ahead and get rid of all this shit too. And we look at, I think it was this 12-hour squeeze. So the last time we had a 12-hour squeeze, we had a very strong bearish breakout. So just because it's a squeeze doesn't mean it's bullish. It just means that you know, it's consolidated and ready for its next leg. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going up or it's going down. You have to play that by ear. But like, here's an example that it's just where it was a squeeze that broke downward. So all it's showing is just consolidation. It's just a way to view consolidation differently. Does weakness in Ether USD and Ether Bitcoin add weight to the theory that Bitcoin is still in distribution? Yeah, so that's a really good question, Kyle. So the classic characteristic of a distribution is that there's an illusion of a quote-unquote broad market where a lot of coins are rising. So you see when Bitcoin rises, randomly you'll see other altcoins just have like humongous pumps, and you're like, oh man, it's altcoin season. And so you're thinking that quote-unquote altcoins are back and it's time to buy altcoins. But in a real bear market, everything goes down. In corrections, that's when you want to buy altcoins. But in a real bear market, you don't want to be buying anything at the moment. There are some outliers that, I take that back. There are some outliers that will do really well, But for the most part, it's a slow trickle. And so the fact that we see both Bitcoin and Ether in distribution on a macro scale, this further supports, in my mind, it just gives more support toward the idea that we haven't found our bottom with Bitcoin, and we're ultimately heading for a lower low in the macro scale, to lead into, like I said, a long-term accumulation phase. We spent 2 to 3 months distributing. I expect to see at least 2 to 3 months accumulating. And we haven't seen that. 1V bottom is not enough for me to say, oh, our bottom is here. I could be wrong. I'm willing, I'll be the first to admit that I'm wrong. Actually, that's not true. I'm sure there's a bunch of Twitter trolls that would just love to tell me I'm wrong because they tell me I'm wrong on a daily basis. Maybe I am wrong on a daily basis, and maybe I'm wrong right now. But I'm just going off of, like the best of my ability at the moment. That's all I can do. From your understanding, are trading Bitcoin subject to wash sale rules? No, they're not. I think technically they're illegal, but they're not regulating them. There's a lot of wash trading going on. I know that for a fact. How do you get the chart with the buy and sell on the top? It's an indicator on TradingView. It's volume flow V6 is the name of the indicator. Can I pay with Bitcoin for the paid group? Yeah, you can. You can. You just have to contact me, and we'll have to set it up. Because right now, so the problem this is one of the problems with paying with Bitcoin is that you can't set up subscription services with Bitcoin because you have to authorize every transaction. Like I can't give you an invoice for Bitcoin, so it has to be done manually. But yeah, we can do that. What about XRP? It is not as bullish as BTC. If BTC falls in price significantly, will XRP follow it, and to what level? Yeah, XRP, like I said, everything's going to go down with it. If Bitcoin falls, they're all going down. Except for apparently Nano. Nano is just like on a fucking like rampage, but it's a different story for a different day. Surely volume is low for this to be a serious breakout? No, I agree. I think we get one more high. And that's where I'll be placing my limit sells. Yeah, I'll be looking to short just a little bit above this high here. Because what is it sitting at right now? Is that 1100? Is that where it stopped? I think it hits 1100 probably and then pulls back down. That or just like rallies to like $20,000 or something. Something absurd. But it just doesn't look very healthy at the moment. But here's something interesting too. While we're sitting here waiting for Bitcoin, so when I posted my last chart about Bitcoin, I was talking about this this bear pennant, or I think I was talking about a bear flag, maybe that was about to break down or something. But it actually saw a micro accumulation trading range, which is really interesting, because nested within this distribution on the 30-minute scale, at the bottom of it was like a beautiful textbook accumulation trading range, which is right here. So that's why it was getting so choppy, and that's why people were like, if you're friends with any day traders, they were getting chopped up right in here, because this was an accumulation trading range and it was beautiful. So, we see a very clear lower boundary, a very clear upper boundary, and then a breakout of it with a sign of strength, right? But here was the spring, and then a retracement, and then here's the spring, and here's a little consolidation before a breakout above the trading range. But this whole thing was like a 5-minute scale, 15-minute scale trading range, and it was like textbook. It looked perfect. And I actually didn't even spot it. I didn't even spot it until after the fact, and I kind of regret it because I love spotting these trading ranges. But I totally missed this. I was too concerned with this linear trend line that we're bouncing off of, and I thought we were gonna break it. And truth be told, I had like a really decent sized short like right in here, and no, he's like right here. I got it on the right shoulder of this Head and Shoulders, and I saw it was testing this, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give myself the day off. and I didn't look at the charts, and it rallied, and when I came back, I got stopped out of my entry. Like in classic accumulation trading range fashion, it stops out everyone who's trying to either long or short. That's why it looks like just complete and utter garbage trend. It's just like, you know, like chop, 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 you know? That's the goal, is to chop everyone out and take as much gold and bullion for the pirates as they can. At what price of Bitcoin we can probably say, what? At what price of Bitcoin can we probably say uptrend continues? If it makes a new high, and finds support there, so if it breaks this line, this band right here, and finds support. But right now we're testing this giant red line that you see just running square through the middle of my chart. If we follow it right here, this giant red line is the, actually I need to move this up, don't I? The giant red line, I'll lock that, is the bottom of the macro distribution trading range. So this is a pretty key level here. And that's what we broke out above. And we're kind of stalling here. So if it manages to make a new high, which is like, I think it's 12K, is that what we said? 12K. So this bro right here, or I'm sorry, 11.8. If it breaks above 11.8 and finds support there, I'll be leaning bullish. But until then, I'm holding on to my bearish argument. I think this is about as high as it goes, because I believe that we're in last point of supply for this distribution trading range. You know, it's not really making a new high here. It's like barely poking above it. I think this is about as high as we go, maybe to this blue line, but I don't even think it goes that high. Time to buy alts now? Dude, do whatever you want. I'm not buying shit. Can you show Wyckoff and compare? Which Wyckoff do you want to see? You want to see this trading range? The current trading range, or do you want to see the macro? Which one do you want to see? What do you think of these bullish arguments from $6,000 low? The first rally corrected to 38. From the $6,000 low to the current high. I have no idea what you're saying, dude. So you want to see the macro? Yeah, so if we look at the 6 hour view, here's the 6 hour view here. We'll throw this over here. And let me see if I can get this. Is this still up here? Oh, it's not still up. Let me clip this again. Okay. So here's the macro trading range compared to historical examples. So right now we would be right here. And there's actually, there are a couple other better examples too. This is just one of the first ones I can find. Let me see if I can find the better one. Oh, here's the better one actually. So let me zoom out and I'll show you. So if we look at I think the daily looks better maybe. Let me get these Bollinger Bands off here. This is all right. This is gonna be good. This is the best historical comparison. It's like spot on. So we would be right here on this chart. We would be right here. So you see the bottom of the trading range here? We're right here. Boom. And we see here the 3 touches of the linear trend. 1, 2, 3. It's like spooky how similar it is. And here's the hypodermic trend. Boom. And then here's the breakdown of the hypodermic trend. Just really curious about why there are these huge pumps in quick succession. What is the purpose of these? Yeah, so the purpose is to short out, is to stop out shorters. So if we look at the 6-hour view of the previous distribution trading range, you know, this happens. This happens often. We see it here, for example. Like this has happened before. We see it happen 1, 2, 3 times, and now we're seeing it 1, 2, 3 times here. You know, this happens. These consolidation periods are longer because it's a larger trading range. But if we compare this, like I'll clip this real quick and we'll compare it. We'll clip that. Can I zoom out on this? Oh, I can't zoom out, can I? Shit. I'll show just this part. And we look at this on the scale of the 30-minute. It's like spot on. So, you know, something like this, where it pumps, it pumps, it pumps, and then it reverses. Pumps, it pumps, pumps, and reverses. And I think that we're right here. Cascading short liquidations. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's cascading short liquidations. Anyway, I'm really eager to go trade this. So I'm probably going to get off of here, and I really want to enter my position here, and I want to be able to like concentrate on it and talk to everyone in my group about it, and you know, have a discussion with everyone about it. But you know, if you're interested in continuing this discussion and you want to join my trading group, go to bitcoinschmitcoin.com and you can get your access there, and you can join in on the discussion and join the live trading rooms and discuss the market with about 300 other people. And you know, you don't always just hear my opinion, you hear other people's opinions too. Like we got some guys in there that are bullish, which is good. It's always good to hear the counterpoint. Then of course I'm always giving my input in there too. But I'm really eager to go trade this, so I'm sorry to cut this short. I wasn't expecting this breakout just now. I was expecting it to consolidate for at least a little bit longer, so I could trade it later tonight. But again, go to bitcoinschmitcoin.com if you're interested in joining the group, and yeah, go ahead and get your access there. But for now, I'm gonna go trade this, and wish you guys the best of luck. You know, even if you have a different opinion, than mine, that's fine. We're allowed to have our different opinions. As long as you're making money, that's all that counts. But I can't emphasize this enough, guys. Use stop losses. Use your stop losses. This choppy market is going to fuck you up. And if you're not using stop losses, you're going to get fucked up. Okay? That's my my dad advice. But again, go to bitcoinschmitcoin.com and join the trading group. I'll probably stream. Honestly, I'll probably stream again this week, later on this week, because it's gonna be really exciting. I think whether it goes up or goes down, it's gonna make for a really good discussion. So you guys have a great rest of your night, and hopefully I'll see you in the trading group. Bye.